Evening, fellow fellas. Germs are practically everywhere in your life, whether that be on the pets in your house, the food that's on your plate, or even inside of you. Now, while germs are one of the key components to keeping you alive, it's also one of the things that makes you sick. Now, while today it's definitely a known fact that you get diseases through different things like germs or viruses, this wasn't always the case throughout history. You see, throughout most of history, people believed that you actually got sick from something called bad air, and this was known as the miasma theory. The first time miasma theory came to life was back in ancient Greece, where one philosopher and physician, known as Hippocrates, pitched the idea that disease came from three things. Hippocrates believed that disease came from earth, water, and air. Now, the general idea of the miasma theory was that you got sick from something known as bad air, which meant that you got sick from bad smells. This basically means that people believe that you got sick from smells coming from things like rotten corpses or fermenting trash. Of course, this makes sense by today's standards, since we know that things like rotten corpses also carry a whole bunch of different bacteria, but back in the day they believed it was all about that stank. The miasma theory reached its peak during medieval Europe and was taken special caution to during major outbreaks of diseases like the plague. Now, the primary way that people tried to combat these bad smells was by trying to get something that was even more pungent into the air. This primarily included things like herbs and spices, which people would just carry around on their person, maybe place around their house, or sometimes even burn inside of their house to try and get rid of this bad air. Another thing that was also used a lot of the time was vinegar. People would use vinegar in a whole bunch of different ways, but primarily through the usage of burning it inside of their house to try and get a more pungent and stronger smell into the air that would in turn remove the bad air. During the plague outbreak of London in 1666, people would also rinse their coins in vinegar to try and get rid of these bad smells. The people of London didn't, however, need to clean their coins for that long, since in 1666 the plague of London finally came to an end, which meant that all the citizens of London could finally go on with their day-to-day lives. Nah, I'm just messing with you. The Great Fire of London happened in the same year in 1666, burning around 85% of the old London in the central city. What was this video about again? Oh yeah, bad air, that's right. Another very popular home remedy was also the usage of onions. People would use onions in a whole bunch of different ways, with the primary way being cutting up the onion and then either placing it throughout the house or laying it under your pillow while you slept. The general idea was that onions, like herbs and spices that we went through before, also had a very strong and pungent smell when you cut them up, and for that reason they were also a great way to try and fight this bad air. Now, all these different things that would magically cleanse the air, according to the medieval people of Europe, is also what gave inspiration for the plague doctor mask. The plague doctor was basically a role that would be spread out throughout the 16th and 17th century Europe during plague outbreaks, where a physician, primarily a very underskilled one, would just go around a specific city that they were given and they would try to cure people of their illness. When you think of what a plague doctor looks like, you probably think of someone wearing completely black robes and wearing an almost bird-like beak. And while this is sorta true, it isn't 100% what the actual outfit of a plague doctor looked like. The modern idea of what a plague doctor looked like, at least in Hollywood movies, came from a satirical drawing made back in 1656 by one Paulus Fürst, who had seen a plague doctor that would go around in Rome and try to cure the different people. What a plague doctor would actually look like is somewhat closer to this. And if you ask me, the actual plague doctor outfit looks 10 times more scary than the satirical one. Now, while the satirical drawing of the plague doctor mask and the actual plague doctor mask do differ from one another in design, they do share the same similarity of having an almost trunk-looking thing sticking out of their nose. Now, this beak that would stick out of the plague doctor mask was actually a way for the doctor to clean the bad air so he himself would not get sick. This worked in a way where there was two holes at the end of this beak, and inside the beak there was a whole bunch of different things that would clean the air. This included a whole bunch of different things that I also listed earlier, which was primarily things like lavender, mint, or even dried up roses, but it could also be more obscure things like sponges soaked in vinegar. Now, the plague doctor's outfit actually helped the plague doctors not get sick, but it wasn't primarily due to the fact of them having some sort of rebreather to clean the bad air, but more in the sense that they were completely cut off from the outside world since they were wearing long robes and in that way didn't get contact with the sick people. Now, something I want to mention is that the disease that we today know as malaria was back in the day thought to be spread through the means of this bad air. Now, the idea that the disease malaria got spread throughout bad air is also how we get its name today, since in medieval Italian, bad air, or swamp air, was known as malaria, which we have today changed into the disease known as malaria. I just want to mention that by today's standards, I think it's a f***ing funny concept that people really didn't understand that you could get sick from things like a mosquito sting, for example. And for that reason, people just thought that, hey, maybe you hadn't cleansed your house enough. Bzz. Oh gosh, that hurt. Well, it seems that he has pissed, shitted, and also vomited all over himself. He has blisters around his neck and he is pale as a crisp. Did he remember to sleep with an onion under his pillow?
I think he forgot to do it for like one day, but it was just one day.
Well, of course he f***ing died. What a stupid idiot! The amount of times I told him to sleep with an onion under his pillow, and there he goes, slacking off for one day, and look what happens. Should have known better. Now, the germ farrier would eventually take over at some time in the 1850s and would more widely get accepted around the 1880s, where the miasma farrier would get out of touch with the modern standards. Now, to sum everything up, people basically believed that stinky air was the reason that you got sick for over 2 millennium. So remember, folks, if you fart in an elevator, you won't get sick from it, but at least we know you are sick in the head. That being said, I'm gonna go burn some lavender now.